Greta Thunberg is a nutter who has backed ethnic cleansing in the Middle East. Now, I will tell you one thing about this girl. We have consistently let her off the hook with her wrongdoing on the grounds that she's a child. Well, she may have all the pigtails and the juvenile look, but she's now an adult. And I think it's time for her to be called to account for the evil that she is committing. Hello, everyone. This is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. As you know by now, the guy that I dragged out to the Trump dinner is attempting to screw me over legally. I'm going to need some legal fees to try and help myself. Please do donate to the Patriot Fund below and you can help. Okay, let's have an update on Greta Thunberg. Let's start at the beginning. Here is a girl who says that she's so concerned about planes flying over her school, gassing her, that she is now unwilling to go into the school. Now, if that was my daughter, if that was my niece, if that was one of my family, I wouldn't run a campaign to ban the aeroplanes. I would instead take her to a psychiatrist. I think if you believe that planes flying overhead, and there's a couple here today, if you believe planes flying overhead are gassing you and you can't go into buildings as a result, then you are in fact mentally ill. There's nothing wrong with being mentally ill, but it's important not to lean into that. But we live in a world now where it's all about my truth, isn't it? So her truth is that planes are gassing her. My truth, which is the truth, is that she is mentally ill. But okay, so we all saw, as I say, that juvenile League of German Maidens look that she had. She was dressed as, or she was playing a 12-year-old when she was about 17 or 18, which is exactly the same as Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz, but I slightly digress. Here is the thing that she's done. I remember her saying that we needed to end, what we need to do is end the myth of perpetual economic growth. Well, that's fine if you bowl round in a £4.5 million yacht. But if you're a subsistence farmer in Sierra Leone, then actually the fact that we have dragged 1 billion people out of poverty in the last 10 years and will pull another 1 billion people out of poverty in the next 10 years is something that we shouldn't be stopping. This idea of a Malthusian disaster, I think, is really, really dreadful. But let's fast forward to what she's doing now. Oh, by the way, before we do that, the only time I've ever been in trouble on Facebook is when she attempted to sail to New York. I made a joke about her journey, which involved a Trident nuclear submarine. I won't tell you exactly what the joke is because I don't want to get banned, but I suggested that midway through the journey, it would be easy to stop her making her speech at the United Nations. Okay, anyway. Here's what's happened with this Gaza flotilla. And I think this is interesting. So she's attempting for the second time to get into Gaza. But on this occasion, she's had a problem. And this is why she's walked out of the trip. The problem she's had is that there are LGBTQ plus activists on board the flotilla. When the Gazans found out that there were gay people on board the boat, they immediately kicked off and she had to resign as leader. Now, what the Israeli Defense Force are now doing, which I think is hilarious, is they're jamming the signal of the flotilla by playing ABBA's Dancing Queen, which I think is quite amusing. But what it shows you is this. It shows you the way that the political left are willing to deal with radical Islamists. And let me just remind you, before we go on to the ethnic cleansing thing, which I will get to, I was reading back the other day from the 1970s about what was said by the British and American left about Ali Khomeini when he became the Ayatollah of Iran, self-appointed, by the way. What it was said was the Shah of Iran was a corrupt dictator. He wasn't that bad, but okay, he's a corrupt dictator. And when Ali Khomeini gets to Tehran, you will see that all the radical Islam he's talked about will evaporate. He will in fact be somebody who runs a free and fair and democratic country where left-wing activists are able to bring in their own socialist regime and all of this sort of stuff. Academics here, there and everywhere were saying that Ali Khomeini would be absolutely fine. What happened when he got to Tehran was he killed all of the left that assisted him in getting into power. And of course, what do the left do? Like they always do, hey ho, we didn't realise. The problem is with these people, because they are so-called well-meaning, when they commit horrendous disasters onto the world, when they, impoverish people with the Soviet Union, when there is the year zero of Mao Zedong, when Cuba starts eating rats because of Fidel Castro, when you have the Kim family now worshipped like gods in North Korea, the left just kind of go, well, we did support them, but that's not real communism, that's not real socialism. Well, I would suggest that if your ideology is so corrupt that anybody who leads it suddenly becomes a crazed dictator, that in of itself is a problem. But here is the remarkable detail. So we've heard about a genocide in Gaza, and I will tell you, I am not the biggest Zionist in the world. I think sometimes they go too far. I think quite often the Israelis go too far on, being unable to meter out individual punishment and not make it collective punishment. Because unfortunately, the big problem, and I've always said this, the big problem that you have in Palestine and Gaza is that we're not doing anything to support the moderates. But let's park that for a minute. One thing that we can all agree on, you and I, and indeed, I think the Israelis would agree on this as well. The problem that we've got is when you see these protests in London, when you see Greta Thunberg and her flotilla, these people are backing Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, and people like that. Now, let's talk about the birthplace of Jesus, Bethlehem, a Christian city for a significant amount of time. It moved from being Jewish to being Christian. When Fatah came into power in the Palestinian territory in the West Bank. So basically, the West Bank used to be Lebanon, Jordan, doesn't matter. Anyway, it was Jordan. Then it was taken over by Israel in the 67 war, and then it was handed over to the Palestinian Authority. When the Israelis had it, Bethlehem was 80% Christian. It is now 20% Christian. Now, I do not believe that any side is committing a genocide against any other side, but there is definitely ethnic cleansing. The difference being encouraging people to leave rather than killing them. Ethnic cleansing is encouraging people to leave. Obviously, genocide is killing them. But that is interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at the Middle East, all of these countries were Christian at one point. There were no Jewish countries, and of course Islam is relatively recent. And so we've seen Lebanon, that used to be a majority Christian country, now become a majority Muslim country. And the reason is very, very simple. And I'm not saying this in order to criticise my Muslim friends, not at all. Islam is inherently expansionist. Islam says that it is basically the completion of the prophecies of God, that Muhammad will come and be the final prophet and the Quran will be the final word on everything. So they believe that this is a staged process. You start as a Jew, become a Christian, then end up as a Muslim. But because of that fundamental view, they are quite fine with pushing Christians out of particular areas. And I think that that is something that Islam and Muslims need to be called to account on. You need to accept that whilst they believe that what they're doing is the completion of the prophecy, if you like, we don't believe that, and therefore we should have a right, even though they say they're right, we should have a right to ignore them, if you like. So where are we up to? Well, where we're up to is this. We've got this problem with Hamas, and we've got this problem with the Palestinian Authority, but nobody cares about that. Equally, here's what nobody cares about, and this is where I'm angry with Greta Thunberg, and where I'm angry with Keir Starmer, and where I'm angry with Emmanuel Macron, and all of those people, Jeremy Corbyn, and all of this. The reason is this. Because the fundamental problems in the Middle East is because of a lack of moderate governments. They're all religious or terrorism extremists, the lot of them, right? Now, you can deal with Netanyahu being crap because there can be an election, but there won't be an election in the Palestinian Authority, there won't be an election in Gaza. We will continue to give succor to the extremists because we can't be bothered doing the work that's needed. And by the way, if you think the answer is Tony Blair, you're even more mad than Hamas. Until next time, please do donate to the Patriot Fund, and goodbye.